Michael Stegosaurus here, and I only love one thing more than dinosaurs, and that is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Today we're going to talk about both. We are looking at the NECA Toys Triceraton Gladiator from the Mirage line of figures. Before we jump in, I thought it would be fun to take a look at the issue that this guy appears in, number 6. I actually happen to have 2 copies here, so you can see the full wraparound cover where they're doing battle with the turtles. This was something cool they used to do back during the original run of the comics, but I also have a copy of the first colored edition of this issue done by First Graphic Novels. So this coloring was headed up by Kevin Eastman himself, and in my mind this is really the definitive color for these characters. Some of the Mirage figures use the IDW colors, and that's fine, but really in my mind this is kind of the right version of these colors. Thankfully it looks like NECA nailed it with these guys. The only difference I noticed is their weapons are silver on the comic and they're mostly brown on the figure, but that's really kind of a minor thing. Just a side note, but if you can get your hands on copies of these colored editions, they are an awesome way to read the stories, but sadly there's really only 4 volumes. Definitely worth checking out though if you can find them. Alright, so because I'm crazy, I went ahead and bought 4 of these guys because there were 4 in the comic, and that's just how my brain works. So I found 2 at Target, and the other ones I got on AliExpress. Go ahead and take a guess which ones those were. If you guessed the ones with the broken, busted up boxes, you are correct. But speaking of the boxes, let's go ahead and take a look at them here. Kevin Eastman's been doing the artwork for these for a while now, and I think he did a really good job on these. Sometimes his art's a little hit or miss for me, but these look pretty good. I also like the comic book style on the back, and we get a little preview of some characters coming up. Baxter and Rat King are already out, but there's a new Foot Enforcer who's going to be red coming out soon here, so that's pretty cool, something to look forward to. But I'm not an inbox collector, so let's go ahead and break this guy out of his plastic prison. Alright, let's bust this guy open. So for me, I like to use an X-Acto knife. I don't know, it just makes things easier to slice these guys up. So first off, we get this cool little backdrop. This is the Triceraton homeworlds. They blew their planets apart, so they're floating through space. I think that's pretty neat. We haven't had a backdrop like that specifically yet. So, as per usual with NECA, as you can see, he's got like 900 of these little ties. That's why I use the X-Acto knife. It makes them easy to cut out. I find these ties to be a bit of a pain in the ass. I never really cared for them, but to each their own, I guess. I wish they would just put them into sort of a formed plastic. That would be really cool. So he's got quite a few here. Thankfully they aren't too tricky today. So he came out pretty simple. As you can see, he has a spot for a tail. So if you have room in your cabinet, you can put a tail on this guy. All right, so we got him out of the box here, and we got his tail on. So, you know, right away, his joints move okay. They are a little bit loose, to be honest. The knees are moving all right. No issues there. These little feet, ankle joints are moving okay. This one's a little funky. Arms okay. This elbow crunch is a little tight. It's kind of a big NECA problem though. Head moves all right, no problems there. Mouth, got a little mouth articulation, which is cool. You can also articulate the wrists like you can on all the other figures. I will say this feels really loose, so not the best. And then of course the tail, you can bend it and pose it however you see fit, mainly probably to keep it out of the way when you have them in the cabinet, because that's going to take up quite a bit of space. Let's check out the accessories we have here. So there's the 3-section staff. This is a whip chain. We got twin swords. We got this big old chonky looking spear. And then we have a whole bunch of hands. So here's an open palm hand, pretty standard. Gripping hand. And then we also have another gripping hand. Pretty typical NECA stuff. Nothing too crazy. And then we also have this tail. This is bendable, as you saw earlier, and it's much smaller than the one that comes with Zog. I'm also hoping the planned Triceraton soldier also has a small tail, so they fit in our cabinets together. Another thing that's actually really cool is these 2 swords. You can put them together, which he does do in the comics, so you get a kind of like Darth Maul thing going on there. Pretty cool. Now we got 3 more of these hunky boys to release from their plastic prison, so enjoy this short little montage of me opening all of them. As I mentioned before, I got 2 from Target, 2 from AliExpress. I know a lot of people in the past have thought that AliExpress only sells bootlegs, These figures are way too new for there to be bootlegs of them, so these are not bootlegs, they're official figures. They're not factory defects, there's nothing wrong with them. Where I live, it's really expensive to buy these guys with tax, so even with shipping included, it's still cheaper on Ollie sometimes. So here's the whole gang standing together and all their accessories. As you can see, it's quite a lot. Overall, the figures look pretty good. There's no issues with the paint that I noticed or anything like that. They all seem to be standing with no problems at all. Their ankles don't move super great, but that hasn't been an issue. As far as the accessories go, they mostly look pretty good, except for that spear in the top left there. That one's pretty scuffed up, but thankfully I have 4 spears, so I don't think I'll have any issues with that. However, if you're just buying a single figure, that could definitely be a problem for you. Taking a look at the hands here, I didn't get any extra lefts or extra rights, so I feel pretty lucky there. So these guys are pretty big. I know people were concerned about the price point. They're about 50 bucks, but this dude here comes in at about 7.5 inches or so. Definitely one of the larger figures from the Mirage line overall. But let's see how he chalks up to the other NECA figures in the line. So let's take a look at this Raphael. This is an original Raphael from 2008, sculpted by the legendary 4 horsemen, the goats. He comes in at about 5 inches or so. They definitely have a pretty big height disparity. But let's take a look at another figure. We have the Jim Lawson Donatello here. He's from that 4-pack that Target released last year, I think. And this guy comes in at about like 6 inches or so. So obviously the height difference is pretty drastic between the two figures. But I think this Raphael looks a lot better with the Gladiator just because it kind of matches the comic book better. I do like the Donatello, I don't know. Something about those originals, man. They're the best. Overall, the Triceraton Gladiator is another great addition to NECA's Mirage line of figures. I would give him a 4 out of 5. He's just really cool looking. As far as nostalgia goes, you know, your mileage is going to vary there. He's sort of a muscular man with a Triceratops head. So if you're used to the Playmates Fred Wolf cartoon design of the character, that may be a little off-putting for you. Quality-wise, no real complaints there. Pretty solid. I didn't have any QC issues on this figure. There was the one spear that had some scuffs on it, but one accessory out of 4 figures having a problem is pretty good, to be honest, overall. As far as accessories are concerned, you know, he's got 1 of each of the weapons that he had in the comic, and then he's got 4 sets of hands and a tail, so pretty good. I did have to take off half a point for the joints because he got those wobbly wrists, stiff elbows, and stiff ankles. It's kind of the worst of both worlds. You really don't want to have those problems at all, and to have both on one figure is definitely not great. Speaking of not great, I also took off half a point for the value. You know, I mentioned earlier, this guy's a $50 figure, and I mean, I'm dumb and I bought 4 of them, so obviously that's on me, but even if I was just buying a single figure, these Ultimates used to cost like 35, 40 bucks a few years ago, and the price has really gone up significantly since then. It's really unfortunate, but that just seems to be where the hobby's at all around right now. Before we go, let's see what my son thinks. He's inspecting the figures. What do you got to say, buddy? I think he likes them.